Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order at 4 p.m. Adoption of the agenda.
That West Elgin Committee of the Whole hereby adopts the agenda for January 8th, 2026 as presented.
Mover, please. Councillor Denning. Seconded. Councillor Sousa. All in favour? That's carried. Disclosure of any pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, we move straight on to 4.1, infrastructure and development, sidewalk and crossworks study.
Good afternoon. I brought this report to the committee of the whole to discuss the need for a crosswalk study throughout the municipality of West Elgin. It was brought to our attention that we have some safety issues, and to address these safety issues, we would need to bring in a consultant to look at all the two towns in the municipality of Rodney and West Lorne to see what needs we have within the community. The two areas that we look to get done in the municipality is down Graham Street and down Main Street in West Lorne, and down Furnival Road in Rodney. And speaking with the consultants and reviewing their report that they've put together for me, we would be doing traffic counts throughout the two corridors or traffic and pedestrian counts throughout the two corridors to determine how many people we have crossing the street, and to see what kind of needs that are going to be driven out of this. This is to enhance pedestrian safety and determine how traffic operations will be affected throughout these areas. To do these studies, we would be looking at the infrastructure that would be needed to be put in through provincial standards, and then Ontario guidelines warrantedness that we will have to be able to follow when we get the counts in. We're going to be the consultants would be reviewing the existing roadway conditions and posted speeds, collecting vehicle and data traffic counts, and confirming pedestrian desire lines. So the desire lines are where people actually walk at, and compared to where we would be directing them to walk at. These desire lines sometimes where kids naturally walk when they cross the street, or where people would cross the street throughout our community. And we can identify them through cameras that we put up and do the counts through that way. So the outcome of the study would determine if we need any pedestrian crosswalks, any marked crosswalks, or if anything's warranted at all at these intersections. We're looking for clear recommendations in this from our consultants, and to identify suitable cross types. And we'll get concept level design ideas from the consultant as well in this study. So if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, questions from council, please. Councillor Statham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Dave, for putting this together. Appreciate it a lot. I think $17,000 is a ridiculous amount of money to spend on a study for crosswalks. That's well above what I would be comfortable looking at. My question is this. So we're looking at revitalizing the West Lorne sort of downtown as a result of the county, replacing portions of Graham Road and Main Street, and that's coming up in the short term, I believe in the 1 to 2 year cycle. I wonder how many of these studies would be concurrent with the studies that they're going to be doing when they replace those roadways. I guess what I'm getting at is the pedestrian studies, the traffic studies. I'm assuming that if we're redoing the downtown based on what the county is doing for the roadways, would that not be included in their studies as well? And secondly, would we be able to sort of dovetail this into the work that is forthcoming in the next year or two on behalf of the county? And can we maybe look at doing, I think the crosswalks are important. I think it's a good thing. But $17,000 is just, it's astronomical, and that's just for the study. So if it's something that we can dovetail into existing works that are forthcoming, is that something that's that we can consider, or how would that fit in? Thank you.
Well, I think when the county does do the roads, when they're renewing all the services, sewages and everything that's underneath that road, and refurbishing, taking all the curbs out and putting new curbs and drop curbs wherever they need to be, I'm sure if any crosswalk goes in, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Common sense.
That's my point, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you 100%. I mean, if we're already redoing the entire road, Graham and Maine, that would be the time that I would think would be most appropriate. And also these studies that we're talking about with respect to pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic, if they're redoing the roadways, I would suspect that they're already doing those studies. And it's something that we can, like I said, dovetail into that. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea. I'd like to see this happen. But, for an engineering firm to come in and do all of this work, and if we ask them to do a little bit of additional work to put in crosswalks, maybe the cost is going to be $2,000 or $3,000 instead of $17,000 to do it separately right before we do a large sort of revitalization of the downtown streets. So that's my question to you, Dave. If you could comment on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I suggest that we go back to the county and ask and see if we can get some sort of timeline. And so then we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. In speaking with the county, we have our project that we're doing with the ARC grant, where we're replacing the storm sewers from in front of this building here all down to the east, and that's part of the revitalization. So in our work in my discussion with the county, they're only doing Main Street, not Graham Street. So it'll just be Main Street and West Lorne. So it's really not included in that development. So when we do Main Street, though, it'll be looked at what the needs are. But this study, what we're putting together here, is more of a community holistic approach. So when we do the holistic approach of the sidewalk study that would be required, it kind of outlays the sidewalks that or the sidewalks/crosswalks that we have throughout the whole community and determines the needs for that. Whether we do the crosswalks that are happening with the construction work, that'll be just the crosswalks that'll get installed, but not the counts that really reflect that in that one area. We could suggest that those counts get done before the commitments of the work at the intersection get done. We can definitely move forward with that. That'll be a lot less money to be able to move forward with that. But at the same time, like these areas are for setups and getting the holistic approach of the whole street for Graham Road, down all the way down to the past the high school and all the way up past Tim Hortons to Jane Street, there to where the sidewalk ends, and then from at the intersection of Graham and Main all the way out to the edge of the town there. It would be approximately around Monroe Street. I can't recall the name of the street off the top of my head, and past into Wood Street going to the east. So we get that whole feel of how the flow works. That's what the intent of the study was, and in Rodney as well, from where the pool access is down through to Clark Street, to get the downtown core figured out of what kind of crossings we need there. So if we're gonna move forward with that, that this is what this study would kind of entail. I understand that there is exceptional cost to this, but that also kind of tells us what needs we have for this study. So
Deputy Mayor Tellier, to you.
Thank you, and through the chair and to you, thank you for this report. Really detailed and outlines everything we had questions about, basically. I won't speak to the village of West Lorne, as I believe Councillor Statham has echoed everything I was going to say. and has the same, I have the same sentiments. It seems like a lot. We should work together with the county and look at that and maybe bring those costs down. I will speak to my concern for the village of Rodney. So the same week that Councillor Souza was bringing this, I was trying to bring it as well, but you know, we can't have two, that doesn't make sense. So what I had for the village of Rodney was parents and some people, some drivers that were concerned you can't see around at Queens Line and Furnival. And that's where a lot of people move in the summertime, going back and forth to the pool, back and forth to the park, and just meeting from that area to uptown into the village. So what I'm wondering is, if they did this study, could we look at it being around, I know that's a long way off, but when the pool's open? Because right now in this, you know, this time of year, this season, not a lot of people are going back and forth there where you can't see around the old Fordham building there when you're driving, and that's the concern parents are having, is trying to see around that, people driving, trying to see around that for pedestrians. Is there something that we could target for the season when children are at school, riding their bikes, going to the pool and the parks and the library?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for the study time, we're trying to get the approval process has to happen now. The study time would be in the spring, summer. We could easily adjust Rodney to be done closer to pool season to be able to get that done. That's something that we can look to get done. But I would like to get West Lauren done during like high school time, where we have people walking around in the spring, around between May and June, to get the numbers that will be appropriate for when most crossings happen. So like, we need to build this out from this time now to when we actually get the study done. When speaking with the consultant through when we were getting this like planned out, that was the plan to have it done in the spring, early summer time, so that we can get the appropriate times done. I have to confirm about the pool timing and when that's open and how that's get affected, but I think that's more appropriate for Rodney.
Okay, just a follow-up if I may.
Yes, please.
Just a thought, I've been sitting on council for 7 or something years now, and I can just hear parents saying, great, you did a study, but this is what I'm telling you. This is what I'm seeing. This is what, like, they're not going to accept a study if it says that there's not enough traffic. And they're going to be shocked that we spent how much money to put towards a study and something that they're visually seeing, knowing with their families and themselves when they are driving. So I'm just concerned about that. I agree, studies are great, does our homework, all the background, but I just find we need to listen to our residents sometimes and not focus on an outer influence.
I just wonder if the consultant comes up with a solution that it doesn't justify one. So there's 17,000 gone down the drain. If we can do them cheaper through the county, I know for a fact that it's going to be 40,000 plus each one. And that was 2 or 3 years ago. I know that for a fact. So where does all this money keep coming from? Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, if I might. So the report's before you to provide costing for a study, and the purpose of the study is to make sure that we are meeting the conditions of the Ministry of Transportation and Regulations Act, and it's for council's awareness of the data that we collect. Council then can decide to take or not take the information that we are providing you. However, from a staff perspective, our recommendation is always to make sure you have the data so that you are making the best decision you can to direct the funds of the municipality. So I think to answer the question, if the data comes back and the study does not support something you want to see, it is up to you to use that information and then make a decision. Then your decision may be based on this is what the community sees as a need. But council, then you have to understand, anytime we implement an asset, we become responsible for the maintenance and insurance and liability of that asset. You can decide that this is still where we want one because you're using the support and information of the community. But as staff, what we are saying is we are just providing you with the data to say, here's the most realistic place to put it, or here's what the data supports to put it. You certainly can use information from outside sources in the decision making.
Thank you. Further questions, please? Councillor Statham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, just a follow-up. I'd like to reiterate, $17,000 is not an amount of money that I would be comfortable spending on the sidewalk crossing study. Having said that, is it possible to do a portion of that study or a significant portion of it in an in-house basis? Do we have the certifications necessary to communicate with the MTO and do the traffic studies? I mean, I'm assuming it's, vehicle counts and maybe pedestrian counts, and I'd like to understand there's some work involved, but doing it in-house, would that potentially decrease that cost? And again, understanding that there's staff time involved, but is that something that we could do in-house? Thank you.
Yes, please.
For in-house work, we don't have the staff available to do that. That's the issue. It's like we don't have traffic engineers on staff, or I could have my public works guys go out there and count, but at the same time, that takes away from the services that we've already provided. So it's where we want to direct our staff to do that work, and then from after that counting's done, then where do we look at be able to process that data? Because in these studies, it's not just the work that is involved in having the data collected, but it's also be able to take the data and have a recommendation to move forward to council. So that's one of the things that really takes away that we don't have the staff to be able to move forward with. So I would love to say yes, but just don't. So
I wonder if we approach the county, if they've got the means to be able to do that. I mean, they look at junctions and know when they've got to reduce speeds and things for safeties, etc., etc. So they're bound to have something. I'm just wondering if they may have what we need to do that job at a cheaper rate. Because we don't have to make a decision on this. This is not going to get passed until the 22nd. And so we have time to be able to make those inquiries. Councillor Sousa.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I was doing a little bit of reading, and I read the new Transportation Master Plan, or TMP. So if I'm leaning towards, can we, like you said, can we not work with Elgin County to clarify what is required to install crosswalks under the newly formed Transportation Master Plan, or TMP? I understand this is new, and there'll be new guideline policies in 2026. For example, I read there's a little section in phase 2 and 3 of the draft report under page 52, action I1 states, to develop clear and consistent decision-making framework for implementing pedestrian crossing opportunities across county roadways in collaboration with local municipal partners and where current pedestrian infrastructure exists. I firmly believe we should be working with the county for future implementation. Like some of the newer updated policies, I think we should work with the county to find out the most cost-effective way of installing the crosswalks.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. Sorry.
So, Mr. Mayor, I believe the recommendation of this report was to move this forward to January 22nd, though I'm hearing a lot of sort of questions from council. So I guess council needs to consider is do you want the report sort of in its structure right now to go forward, or are you wanting us then maybe to return later in February answering some of the questions we've heard today?
Yeah, Councillor Statham.
I am not comfortable spending $17,000 on a report. So I would say hard no on my part. I think that we can work, to Councillor Seuss's point, I think we can work with the county. I think there are other alternatives, but $17,000 for a report and then $40,000 for every individual crossing. Mr. Mayor, if I heard you correctly, I think that's what you said. We just don't have the we don't have the funds for that. So, I would say let's put this off. Let's see if we can work with the county. Let's see if we can find a more reasonable solution and go from there. That'd be my opinion.
I personally think we should go try the county as best we can and then talk it over again and come back.
I agree.
Councillor Susan.
I agree.
Yep.
So to our clerk, would you need then a motion to amend the recommendation?
Yes.
So
Sorry, I still wanted through you, Mr. Chair. I just still want to thank Dave for all his work on doing this. Thank you.
okay,
So do I have a motion to amend?
I'll put that motion forward.
And your amendment being to return to the committee a whole with further to respond to questions or?
That we defer this until we have a chance to communicate with the county. And
we get further information.
Investigate and see if we can find some further information that's going to assist us in making this decision at a lower cost.
Just give Terry a moment to try to draft an amendment.
Sorry, Terry.
That's okay.
We just wait a minute or two and we'll have another resolution.
But to return to the committee of a whole at a future date to discover funding.
Alternative sources of funding.
I think it's important in there to say to return the committee whole after conversations with the county, exploring options and alternative funding.
Right.
Really alternative funding, but lower funding.
Whole after exploring options with. Thank you. So return to committee of the whole after exploring options with the county of Elgin to discover alternative funding sources.
I think it's not just the funding sources. I think the issue really is around working with the county of Elgin to explore like engineering options. So, or consulting options.
Alternative consulting options.
And
I'm speaking.
and you can
council,
include
but here
sources of
from
funding
council.
too.
And maybe following their updated policies, because I'm reading about the new policies that's coming out, and I think some of the stuff is being more clarified and changed.
I think there are investigating conversations with the county. We can make sure we lean into that and ask.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion to amend from Councillor Statham I have, so return to the committee of the whole after exploring options with the county of Elgin to discover alternative consulting options and funding sources.
Okay.
Does that capture?
I think so, yeah. If the rest of council's in
I think
agreement.
that covers it.
Yep. Is the rest of council in agreement with that?
So
I think so.
we have a move.
Yeah. So
Want to say?
included in that motion, I will include that the West Elgin Committee of the Whole hereby receives the report from Dave Sharon, Manager of Infrastructure and Development, and that we return to Committee of the Whole after exploring options with the County of Elgin to discover alternative consulting options and funding sources.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just gonna. So I'm just gonna second it.
Okay.
Seconded?
Mover.
Mover, seconded, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And we move to 4.1.2, water connections bylaw. Dave, it's over to you again.
Thanks. I'm bringing this to the committee of whole to discuss a bylaw that that was passed by council in 2020, the end of 2024. Is regarding the water connections for water services I want to just to set it out there to clarify some of that bylaw that we have set out. There's connection fees that are in the bylaw that indicate connection fees that were not clarified to have the capital costs that were that were laid out in bylaws to the municipality that included bylaw capital costs and connection fees. So those fees were in different bylaws that weren't repealed in the bylaw that was set out in 2024. In my report, it indicates the issues of the capital costs, and property owners perceive that the fees could be unfair or inconsistent. The bylaw charges that will be updated will be in the attached bylaw that I've had for draft in our report. There'll be just one fee plus one fee per connection size, and then with additional costs of materials, labor, and machine time that go along with it. This bylaw that is drafted has been sent to the county for review as well. I'm in discussion with them when I pull this to council at the next meeting. It will have any update or changes to that as well. I think there was some small wording changes that I've discussed with them to clarify. These charges will ensure like transparency and fairness for the residents of West Elgin that are looking to connect, and there will be fair, predictable costs and alignment with construction costs and support any future development to the system that we have. So, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Unfortunately, water's always expensive. I don't care which way you look at it. But I always think that it's always been unfair when you get different roads on different prices. And I think it's nice to get things stabilized quite a lot so people know exactly where they're going. Okay, on subdivisions, we know the price is down. There's a lot of houses close together. But, when you get one side road, which might be 9,000 and another one might be 15 and another one might even be a lot more than that. And I think it's time we stabilized it so everybody knows what they're doing. Councillor Denning, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Dave, thank you for the report. Absolutely makes sense and benefits the individual who's looking to take advantage of water services. But the current formula now being changed to benefit that individual, where does the municipality get that lost compensation? Is that going to be on the backs of the taxpayers in general? So what I mean is that if we do this, do we have to find that money somewhere else? And if so, where does that come from?
The initial capital cost that came through before this bylaw was assessed was the capital cost of the water main that went through, plus the connection fee. That connection fee was $1,200 previously. Now that connection fee is basically for a 1 inch for a urban field is $15,000. So that connection fee substantially went up, so that all the people are paying appropriate fees to that fee. So there's a win some lose some mentality to this, because sometimes that connection fee would have been under that $15,000 value prior to this bylaw that got passed in 2024. So now it's more of a aligned fee rather than a capital plus a smaller connection fee that was in place prior to this fee going through.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Dave. So then we had a gentleman in here a month and a half, 2 months ago, expressing his frustration with this very situation. It sounds like this is one of the things that we've done to address that. But does that address it? Like, if we move forward with this, does somebody like that gentleman who was in here a month and a half ago, would he benefit from this?
The gentleman that was in here a month and a half ago, he actually was on a water main that didn't have a capital cost. So his connection costs would have been less in this case because the connection costs that got passed in the bylaw ramped them up to the $15,000 charge. Since the water main that was in front of that road didn't have a capital charge because of the situation it was when the water main was installed. So it's a mishmash of capital charges that were happening throughout the municipality. So some people had a capital charge of $20,000, $30,000. Some people had a capital charge of $4,000. And then in this case, in this gentleman's case, his capital charge was actually zero because of where it was put in at the time. So that's it really sets a bar across the whole municipality to have an understanding of how much you're going to pay before you're going to put it in. So
Thank you.
Councillor Statham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I guess it's more of a, just in terms of fairness to properties, I mean, rural properties in this sort of scenario are paying more. And that makes sense, because there's more infrastructure that needs to be installed. I just wonder, does that maybe feel slightly punitive to these people if the lines are extended in that area without their input and then they try to connect to that line? It's going to cost them more, but they weren't involved in the installation of the infrastructure to begin with. I guess what I'm trying to say is, are we fair across the board, especially rural properties? Because the rural residents are going to pay significantly more for this than people in the villages, for example. And I guess my question is, if a line is extended down, whatever, let's say Silver Clay, for example, and then, have someone that wants to hook up onto it, the line's already been extended there, they're going to pay more for that. But that line was extended there without their input. So, you understand what I'm getting at?
yeah, so to help clarify this, like a lot of these charges help us with when the water main has to be replaced as well. So water mains don't last forever. When they have to go to repair the water main, if there's any problems on it helps justify those charges when we do any repairs as well. So if it is an urban setting, there's a repair that has to happen. It will get spread around more people rather than the limited number of people that would happen in a rural setting. So it helps justify that. This bylaw was approved already too with these prices back in 2024. So that we're just in the update, we're just trying to clarify what capital charges versus what connection charges are. So
Thank you.
Further questions? Yeah. I don't see any. So could we have the recommendation, please?
The recommendation is that the West Elgin Committee of the Whole hereby receives the report from Dave Sharon, Manager of Infrastructure and Development, and that West Elgin Committee of the Whole hereby recommends that West Elgin Council at its January 22nd, 2026 regular meeting repeal bylaw 2024-75 and replace it with an updated version with the changes noted below as supported by the attached document.
Could I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Denning. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Tellier. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And we go to 4.1.3, verbal discussion. Landfill concerns. Is it you?
Thank you, Mr.
Madam
Mayor. I'll
Chair.
start the conversation. Dave and I are looking at each other like, who wants to start this off? So council, during the holiday break, we did notice some emails going around and some questions around the upcoming spring which we typically have, which is a large drop off at our landfill. And so we wanted to bring to the committee of the whole to start hearing some of your questions and concerns so we can start to investigate how maybe we should be best proceeding. And if council remembers, sort of mid last year, we received a report from Blue Metrics, which was talking about the general health of our landfill and the anticipated time of which we will be achieving sort of capacity. And prior to that report, we were noting that we had about 25 years. And then last year's report indicated we have about 5. And so we have limited time left within that landfill. In your 2025 budget, we were already starting to put down items and discussions on preparations for the closure of that landfill, and then our commitments going forward, showing what would be cost to cap the landfill, and then our obligations to continue to monitor and have consultants actually come in and monitor and report on the landfill, sort of going forward, which I believe is at least 25 years
After closure, yeah.
after closure.
Yeah.
So council, I guess what we're wanting to do is start a little bit of a conversation around how are we going to be proceeding knowing that what we really are is end of life? And how do we best manage a landfill that has very limited capacity? How long do we sort of preserve the capacity we have? And what sort of programs should we be continuing with, not continuing with, or looking forward to continuing this? And by that, I mean things like communication programs and starting having conversations with the community around reduce, reuse, recycle. Because not only are we looking at the closure of a landfill, we are also looking at the additional expenses, because maintaining that as a transfer station means we then are going to be picking up the cost of anything that would have typically been dropped off there and put into our landfill, now will be carted to the landfill in Southwold. And we'll be paying those tipping fees. And to add into the conversation, council, for your awareness, last year at Rome, I attended a information session, I believe it was on the Ministry of Environment, around overall capacity of landfills in Ontario. And at this moment in time, they're predicting we have at least, or at the most, I should actually say at the most, 10 years of landfill capacity. And that wasn't even with the consideration of the impact of tariffs and the potential for the United States to reduce or overall refuse any of our garbage going across the border. So they do anticipate that to be an accelerated sort of closure date for all of our, like that's capacity we have is 10 years. And 10 years seems like such a far time away, but it's not, considering we need to also deal with how do we set up new landfills. So I'm just putting that information there. Maybe Dave has more to add to this conversation, but to really have maybe something from councillors start the conversation about how should we look at proceeding, knowing that this is the information in front of us.
Yeah, I think Robin hit the nail on the head on a lot of that stuff. So we just want to make sure when we do offer any free days or be able to track what we're doing and have an actual cost to it as well. Because when we have these days, there is a cost that's associated with it on our end that we're offering too. So we just want to make sure that we can track and monitor all those as we move forward. So.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you so much for that discussion. I'm the one that sent out the email in regards to wondering what was going on with it. So what I'm worried about is great. We put education out there. We educate the public and the residents in regards to the lifespan of our landfill. Not sure what the lifespan of the Southwold landfill is, but that's probably also got an end date as well. And we get a lot of calls for people that have, there's been a couch on the side of the road for 4 months, or, things aren't looking so great. We already see dumped Christmas trees. We didn't announce our drop off. They already just said, forget it. I'll just take it to Kerr Road and dump it there. So we offer leaf and garden pickup, and people drive down the railway tracks and dump their leaves anyways. They don't even leave them at the side of the road for pickup. So I'm just worried about our sidewalks, our roadways, side of the road, everything looking horrible. Because as much education as we put out, there's always the people that say, I didn't know that. I don't have the information. I don't know where these people are looking, but it's everywhere to educate people when we're putting flyers out, putting things in with our tax bills, water bills, every time we put out education for anything like this, there's always a blind eye to something. And I'm just really worried if we don't educate so much, just overdo it, that's what our roadways are gonna look like with couches and garbage everywhere. Cause it already is a little bit of a problem now that we don't have the at curb pickup when we eliminated that in 2022, fall, I guess the winter of 2022. To not have it that spring. And I'm worried that that's what's just gonna look like a landfill at our curbsides, unfortunately.
Yeah, very unfortunately, if we carry on collecting these large items, our streets are going to be full very quickly because once our landfill's filled, we're done. So, do you want it now or do you want it later? And that's what it's going to come down to. Councillor Statham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I might have asked this question in the past, but I just want to be clear about it. Is there no capacity to expand the landfill? Like, I understand that we can, through the ministry, we can apply for additional cells to be added to the landfill. Is that a possibility, Dave, or is that something that's out of the question? Is it a cost issue? And maybe what are those costs? Or is this something that we should just, we're going to shut it down and that's the end of it? Thanks.
The issue with the landfill that we have is it's not located in the most ideal location. The landfill surrounded by gravel pits, and that was one of the landfill before it was a gravel pit. And having landfill be a gravel pit is not the ideal land for it, because as gravel runs water through, there's more chance for environmental concerns as we have that. So to expand the landfill that we have, we could go up, but as we go up, we create more problems because you just limit yourself as you go up as well. So being in the business of garbage is a difficult business, because then we have to continue monitoring it for years and years after what we have. And it's being a municipality and not having a garbage expert, it's really tough to be able to run that forward. So
yeah,
just thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. So the concern is that because of the location, it's on a limestone gravel pit, and we're concerned about the leachate coming out of the landfill. Are there not liners or other solutions that? Again, I don't want to keep harping on the concept of expanding the landfill, but if the concern is that we're going to close the landfill, do we have the option of expanding it, or no?
so the landfill's going to get full. We can't expand it. If you did what you said, it would eventually fill up with surface water and everything else and spill over, and it would pollute just the same.
Okay, so that's the question I have. Like,
we do have wells all the way around, right, and some of them were clean. We extended the fill a little bit. We bought some land some years ago, and it wasn't long before those clean wells started to get polluted. So where do you go? You just go bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're just not allowed to do that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I guess when you're looking at a 10-year time frame on no more, garbage being accepted in Ontario, I mean, there's going to have to be a solution. I feel like with the technology that exists, maybe there's a possibility of installing liners, or, I don't know a lot about landfill. It's far beyond my area of expertise. But if the landfill is at capacity and we can't expand it, and that's not possible, then that's one thing. If there is the possibility of expanding it potentially, and I'd like to know if that's a possibility and what the cost would be. I guess that's my question. But from what I'm hearing is it's just not feasible.
Not really, no.
If I might, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
we can start to investigate what the options might be at the existing site. We know they're limited due to the substrate that's there, so the land that's surrounding it. But we can certainly investigate to see. That's an option as to, do we expand, or are we looking at another landfill? The other question is, what do we do in 5 years if we don't have a landfill? Which is the other part of the question I think we have to make sure we're focused on.
For sure. And if you look at some of the other landfills, I mean, 10 years, what's Ontario going to do with and if we would stop trucking in garbage from Detroit, I mean, maybe that would help. But I mean, it's outside of the conversation, but we're going to have to come up with a solution one way or the other. And whether we're trucking it to Green Lane or we're taking it to Watford or taking it elsewhere in the province, we're still going to have to come up with a solution.
Significant cost.
Well, it's going to be a cost no matter what we do.
Yeah.
Right. So one way or the other, we're going to have to come up with a
Deputy
solution.
Mayor Tellier.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you for your thoughts, Councillor Statham. Kind of looking at a different gear, when we have someone who's dumped I'll say a couch, dumped a couch somewhere, what does that cost us in staff time? And then if someone also is collecting things on their property and it becomes a property standards concern, what does that look like for staff time? I wonder if I can get, I don't know if that's a motion I need to make or what, to just have a quick report back. Looking in the future, if we don't have I call it anything day, but you know, the low fee day or whatever we want to call it, in the spring cleanup. If we don't have that and people ignore or say there wasn't education, and start dumping things, what does that look like for staff time and eventually down the road if someone decides to Sanford and Son and collect 100 things on their lawn, what does that look like
When you put
for
the
the
pro-
price?
The price
for
on
the
their
municipality.
taxes, but we still have to take it somewhere.
That's true. Yeah, so what does that,
I think that's, if I might, Mr. Mayor, that's something we probably, and Dave had actually at the beginning of the conversation was talking about running free days, picking up garbage, like we really should be putting a cost to that. If it is a property standards of which we have to go in, I believe the bill goes back to the property owner.
okay, that's what I
Right.
thought. I just wanted to make
If
sure.
it is a random couch on the side of the road, then I think currently we're cleaning it up. I mean, we may also need to look at certain bylaws, which, you know, look at both the carrot and the stick. How do you incentivize people to actually to become mindful and aware of the garbage we are producing as an individual and as society? What are our policies? So, you know, some municipalities City of Toronto limits the amount of garbage,
Mhm.
making sure we have programs in place that encourage recycling. So whether that's your yard waste, your food waste, your lawn waste, so we're not putting grass clippings and trees and things
Mhm.
that can biodegrade into our landfill, but we're setting up programs that we have spaces of which we can accept those, of which they can then decompose and not take up space. So I think there's many solutions we have to start looking at, but one also may be that, you know, we have to look at charging the landowner if they put something out in front of their property.
For X amount of days kind of thing.
Then we pick it up, but we have to bill back. And then that's for council's consideration,
Mhm.
right? I think there are many things this council needs to start, or this municipality needs to start looking at, because the clock is ticking.
Yeah, I'm just trying to not have it go back on all the taxpayers when someone
That's correct.
discards
yeah.
something, and what that looks like. So that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Denning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Important conversation. Last year, we made the change to be a little more limited into what we were going to accept into the landfill. And a couple of the community owners came out to that meeting, and on the way out the door, 2 or 3 of them expressed the concern that it would represent more garbage bags in the ditch. I don't think that that's necessarily occurred. I mean, I drive the gravel roads all the time. I haven't seen a big difference. And yes, we are in a predicament in the next 5 to 10 years. We are going to be at capacity with our landfill, but then so is pretty much every other municipality in Ontario. And the province is going to have to step up and help be partners in solving this problem. And I do believe that in the meantime, one of the most proactive things that we can do is continue to be a place for people to dump the things that they need to get rid of. Robin had a wonderful idea with, you know, diversion techniques for grass clippings and compost and all that. But the fact of the matter is that we should be continuing to accept items, and we should be charging appropriately and taking that money and putting into a reserve fund so that we have a fund in place in the future to maintain that landfill after it's closed for the next 25 years, so that's not on the backs of the next generation of taxpayers. I do believe that there shouldn't be anything for free at this point, and that everything should have a cost, because associated with that cost is responsibility, and people will think twice about the things that they bring out to the landfill. And at the end of the day, yes, everything has, for the most part, has a cost. I think majority of people, as long as they have a place to dump, they will be willing to pay the cost as opposed to putting couches on the sides of roads. I just haven't seen a whole lot of that. So having the tipping fees appropriate in cost does two things. It does make people take consideration to be responsible with the amount of things that they're bringing to our landfill, but at the same time, the things they do bring to the landfill will generate revenue to help West Elgin in the future financially maintain its responsibilities.
Thank you. Further questions? Yes, Councillor Statham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you again. Again, I echo those sentiments. I think that if we were charging appropriately, we could generate a reserve fund that would assist us in coming up with solutions down the road. And again, that could be revitalizing the existing landfills that we have. There are technologies out there, and I'm sure, Dave, I'm sure you're aware of these, but certain leachate collection and management systems, clay liners, geotextiles that we put underneath the land. There's no reason why we can't necessarily expand that landfill. It's possible. It's expensive, but it's possible. And if we were charging the correct amount for the trash that's being placed in those landfills, the technology exists to make that something that we can continue to do into perpetuity almost. I don't think that it's unreasonable to say that we can't keep that landfill open. I know we were talking about closing it, and again, I'm not a landfill specialist, but I do think that there's solutions, and maybe one of the solutions is to charge appropriately, and that will reduce the amount of trash that we're receiving at the landfill, because people are gonna, not necessarily, you're not gonna take 6 bags to the garbage dump if you know that you're gonna have to pay for them, right? Maybe you'll take 4, and the rest of it you're gonna throw in your burn pile or whatever, right? But well, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, I think it's a multifaceted approach that we have to take, and I think, saying that we're just going to shut down the landfill, I don't necessarily think that that's the right solution, but I think there's a number of things that we could look at here. Increasing costs, I think, is one of the ones we have to look at for sure.
But when you look, we haven't neglected the landfill totally. When you finish a landfill, they put a certain amount of clay on the top.
Capping, yeah.
It's capped, so the rainwater runs off, doesn't leach in, and then takes the pollutants out. It's done for a reason. So we've done the best we can in the circumstances. Further questions?
I think council will just take some of the information and comments we've heard today, and we can start to explore. I think one of the things we'll have to do is either bring back to the committee of the whole or to council is then around the question of free days. Well, I understand the concern is if there aren't free days, but garbage pickup and pile up. Though I heard Councillor Jennings' comment that saying when people have to pay for it, they become a little more responsible. Last year, we did have a concern on the free day, the volume of people that were coming out to the landfill. To the point that I did make comment to staff that if there's far too many people, you need to close the door. Like, there's only so much we can accept. One of the things that was a little bit disheartening to me, though, was seeing what people were taking to the landfill. Bikes that were in pretty good repair. Like, these are things that can easily be recycled. Maybe you can't repair it, but maybe we need to find a place where we can send them to be repaired and set up some industries around that. It's so easy for people to dump when we don't have to think about the cost and we don't think about the impact, the environmental impact that it has. And the future is coming a lot faster, I think, than we anticipate it to. So thank you. We'll take that information back and we will start to bring another report back to this council about some of our recommendations on how to proceed.
Thank you. A good discussion anyway. And we'll move on. Okay, so we go to 4.2, community services and clerks. If you wouldn't mind, backyard, urban, hens, end of pilot program.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everybody's favorite subject here on this council is our backyard chickens. So the pilot project did come to an end, and you'll see in the report, I've given a little bit of information on how the pilot project went. I wouldn't really call it successful. We only had the 2 applications. And it was certainly a learning curve for our bylaw enforcement officer too. A little bit of extra time on the first one, lots of paperwork to go over just to ensure that everything was in place. And then the second application, as you can see, it hasn't been finalized yet. There hasn't been a final inspection, and the payment has not been received for it. So again, I wouldn't really think that it's a very successful program that we did run. So I've given some options on how to move forward with this program. And I think that one thing to really keep in mind is the importance of having the bylaw. Whether we move forward with a licensing program, fee-based, non-fee-based, however that looks, I do believe that it is very critical that we have the bylaw at least in place, because that gives parameters for our bylaw officer when a complaint is received that he or she at the time has something to go on where we did not have anything in the past. This year, we did receive one complaint, and the chickens were getting out and jumping on the neighbor's vehicle, scratching the vehicle. So that actually did happen. So our officer was able to use the bylaw, and then also have that owner of the chickens who didn't know about the program. They were very good with it. They came in and they worked with the officer to start working on the appropriate steps. So the options that I have given, option 1 being implementation of a permanent program with a licensing increase. As you'll see, our cost certainly outweighs the revenue that we are receiving, even with an increased cost to $300 with a $100 annual renewal. Again, it just establishes the parameters that we're setting for the setbacks, for the coops itself, how many hens can be kept, no roosters, so it's we're not disturbing our neighbors. And then also it allows for food security, educational opportunity, waste reduction, some mental health benefits, and pest/insect control, which was primarily the reason that we implemented this pilot program in the beginning. As you'll see with each option too, there is some negatives that could potentially come with it. We're not saying that they will, but certainly they could. Increase in number of them could be problematic. We've seen, and it's been going through the news, the bird flu, the avian flu. It could happen. Again, not saying that it will, but again, there's always cons when there is pros. Second option would be just to not proceed with the program or the bylaw. This one, again, though, that would go back to what we had a couple of years ago, where our bylaw for enforcement officer, if he were to get a call, he or she would have nothing to go on without a proper bylaw in place. And then the option 3 would be to allow the hens. So we would still implement the bylaw without the licensing requirements. Some of the challenges without having the licensing requirements, it would eliminate the database on how many coops we do have within the municipality. If, heaven forbid, there were to be some form of an outbreak of the bird flu, we would not know where these coops are located. Again, is that going to happen? I don't know. It would potentially increase the bylaw hours. Permits us, we could have concerns of animal welfare, public nuisance, noise, odor, increased number of predators, public health risks. Again, each option has their pros and their cons. So with the summary and recommendation, it is recommended that we implement a permanent bylaw to establish the parameters for raising our backyard hens in the urban areas with an initial fee of $300 and an inspection fee of $100. Taking a look, I also linked we do have a kennel licensing program that we've had within the municipality. I'm not sure how long it's been in place, certainly longer than I've been with West Elgin. So it is a comparable program, and we don't have a lot of it, people that have the kennel licensing, but they are very diligent on every year, making sure their inspection is done, making sure they're up to whatever codes need to be in place. So with that being said, I am certainly open up to further discussion. Councillor Statham.
Well, well, I think
Thank you,
I think the price of $300 is extortionate.
I think that's crazy. No one's, you know what's gonna happen if you charge people $300? They're just not gonna do it. I mean, they're already not doing it.
You are
And,
correct.
and
So like, that's never gonna happen.
to understand some of the people that, I'm not standing up for anyone, but knowing something about chickens, some people only keep them 6 and 7 weeks and they're gone for the rest of the year because they're doing meat birds for their family. And so you're going to pay $300 for a license to keep chickens for 6 to 7 weeks. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Even for eggs. I mean, you pay $300 a year, or sorry, $100 a year, $300 the first time. Even if you're just getting eggs, $300 buys a lot of eggs. I think that those costs are just.
And it.
No
to
one's gonna
be-
pay them. They're just gonna do it anyways.
Yes, to be fair, and I do some in front of me. Other municipalities, some don't have a fee. Some range anywhere from I've got like $50 up to $400 for the initial permits. Some have a annual fee, some do not. So there's really no set parameters on what municipalities are doing. Southwold, for instance, our close neighbors, they have $150 licensing fee for R1 properties. Chatham Kent has a $400 initial fee with $125 for renewal fee. So again, big difference on different municipalities on what they're doing. So
And as regards the bird flu, unless they have a license, or you go around knocking at everyone's door and looking in their backyard, you have no idea, because we got two. There's probably 200 people got chickens right now this minute, and we got 2 licenses. Is that where we send the official people because of bird flu? It doesn't tell us one thing.
right, and bringing up the bird flu, that's just I'm giving you all the
No, I realise that. I realise that
Yes.
you do that, and you know, and you're right doing that.
Mhm.
But I was just picking holes in it
Yeah.
because they won't do
Yeah.
that. Yes, Councillor
I
Susan.
just wanted to, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say a lot of our constituents are struggling. They're struggling to get by, and they're struggling to put food on their tables. So they're doing these chickens, and they're trying to get ahead of the game a little bit. And then just this $300 it's a lot of money for families. And I like option 3. I think creating a bylaw without licensing requirements may help. Personally, I know 2 or 3 families that have chickens. They're not in favor of this. They express their frustrations. I'm not going to name any name. They're not gonna pay it. They're just gonna go about. So they're gonna be breaking the rules, and they're just gonna. And and if the flu happens, and we're gonna be tracking down where is it coming from, and it's not gonna solve anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Statham.
I would suggest that the avian flu is something that happens in large facilities. You know, realistically, when you're talking about chicken calls and that kind of thing, it happens in industrial scale facilities where they're culling hundreds of birds. It's not in backyard flocks where you have 6 chickens. I mean, it's silly to even suggest that. To Councillor Seuss's point, you know, if we're charging $300, no one's gonna pay that. They're just gonna do it anyway. I mean, they're already doing it anyways, and most of them aren't paying the small fees that we already have. At least with a bylaw framework in place, if there is I mean, Madam Clerk, maybe you can tell me how many complaints there were in the last year. I think you said 2. One complaint
Mhm.
in 365 days. So, you know, we're not really. At least if we have the bylaws in place, it allows our bylaw officers to work within a framework. You know, realistically, it's not costing us a ton of money. We have families that are, you know, trying to put eggs on the table for their kids. You know, like I feel like this is much ado about nothing, honestly.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So council, we hear your concerns and we also understand them as well. I just would like you to understand that the recommendation was before you because we just wanted to make sure cost recovery was in place. If there's a licensing program, then right now the cost to license is borne by the municipality. That cost, the ease of doing it more frequently may bring it down. We certainly respect council's concerns that they have over the cost, but I just want to make sure the understanding is that the recommendation was there due to the fact that we wanted to make sure cost recovery was in place.
I understand 100%. And based on the small amount of people, $300 makes sense. That probably is what it costs us to go out and license all these individual properties. But the reality of it is nobody's going to pay that. And we're just going to have people doing it anyways. So I'll leave it there. That's all I have to say about it. Thanks.
Yes, Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a formula for cost recovery based solely on fines? Not licensing?
Certainly that'd be something we'd have to look into and go through the fines individually. They are attached to they are included in the bylaw. But certainly it's something that we could look into.
I might sort of add to that, and I'm wondering, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No, sorry.
There are fines for violations of the bylaw. Certainly, as all of our bylaws are, and our community is a complaint driven, meaning we do not actively drive around. We have 10 hours of bylaw a week. We don't actively drive around and look for those who are contravening any of our bylaws. So if there were to be a complaint and somebody did not come into compliance, then certainly that fee would help to offset. We would have to do a little more research and data to understand, is it completely offset? Typically, our bylaw officer doesn't just issue fines on the first occurrence. They tend to try to work with community members to bring them into compliance. Fines tend to be sort of the last effort when communities choose or members choose to not meet the bylaw. So there is a lot of time, I guess I'm saying, up front. And so that fine, I think, is more as a deterrent to doing something, but it doesn't really cover the entire cost when we're looking at the repetitive times the bylaw officer would go out.
Anything further? I look at it personally, and I think option 3 is the one that we can manage. And I think that there'll be a way that we could recoup some money from our bylaw officer if he has to keep going out in one way, shape or form. I don't think number 1 is going to work, but anybody else with suggestions?
I think if we start seeing a ton of infractions and a ton of fines, maybe we relook at it. But given where we're at right now with one complaint over the last year, I think we could probably just leave this one alone. But
Yes, Councillor Sousa.
Yes, it's option 3 creates more transparency. More people will be willing to talk about it, come forward, and we can work together as a community, provide some rules. And like you said, like that the bylaw officer goes out, gives a warning, and they, hey, I didn't know that. And they get educated on the spot, and away we go. I think it's more community driven. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to amend to include option 3 instead of option 1?
Please.
If I might sort of at this time, when you're looking at to amend, this committee is sort of giving direction. We're here to have a conversation. Council will make the decision ultimately on the report. So this report will go to council on the 22nd. So maybe give some direction for staff to look at the recommendations that are provided to move this forward. And the reason I say that, council, is sometimes we as staff may still stand on our recommendation because we're providing you advice. You as council then accept that advice, but then you take in your concerns that you're hearing from the community, and then you would make amendments then and the decision. But I really want to make sure that that's clearly understood, that staff, at times, it may not be this report, but at times may still have to stand on the recommendation they're providing you, because that's the advice and what the data says. Council then has to accept that you would accept that. And I mean, accept it as in you read what we deliver you, not accept as in you agree with us. And then you make your decisions that way. So just before we make a motion to go forward, I just want to make sure there's some clarity sort of around that. And that this really is just a motion to proceed to council with, I'd almost say for staff to look at the suggested amendments.
And our big decision comes on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Just going to wait for a minute for a recommendation.
Sure. Yeah.
After this.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. So as an amended motion, I have that West Elgin Committee of the Whole hereby receives the report from Terry Toshik, Manager of Community Services, Clerk, and that council directs staff to look at the suggested amendments to option 3 to be approved at the regular meeting of council on January 22nd, 2026.
Mover, please. Councillor Sousa, seconded. Councillor Statham. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. I'm going to call for a 5 minutes break. Okay, we'll start back at the meeting again. And we go to 4.3, Chief Administration Officer. A verbal discussion, Roma delegations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, as you've been seeing some emails go into your inbox, I had put in several delegation requests at after council's discussion late last year to some of the concerns that we have heard back from the various ministries. So I wanted just to bring this here because as I'm drafting some of those documents for you to support you in your discussion, in your delegation, I just want to make sure that I'm hitting some key points of your concerns on that time. So council, one of the delegations we have is with the Associate Minister for Mental Health and Addiction Services. At the time I heard from last year, you did have some concerns around sort of mental, oh, is that my tea or my water? That's okay, pull it, it's okay, it's closed. You had some concerns around rural access to mental health support, and particularly for mental health services and addictions. And so maybe I'd like to hear from council as to, are there any key points that you're wanting to make sure that we're putting into this delegation request? I have reached out to Andy Croker at West Elgin Community Health Center. He will be joining us in the delegation. So I've also asked him, like, what are the concerns or issues that the health center is seeing and some programs or needs that they would like to see in place. But just an opportunity to hear from council on that issue and topic.
Yes. Councillor Denny, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Robin, thank you for that. I'm really, really glad to hear that Andy will be part of this delegation. As a small community, it's incredibly difficult for us to find the resources to support those who need help. And the last thing I would want to see is duplication of services here in West Elgin. And if West Elgin Community Health Center is striving to take care of all of those support services, I know that funding is a big part of it, that what we should be doing is certainly supporting them and showing them that we have their back and advocating with West Elgin Community Health Center to make sure that they have the funding that they need to provide the services in our community, as opposed to just trying to take it on ourselves. So as long as I think that that we are pushing to make sure that the province understands how important West Elgin Community Health Center and their services are, that's certainly the direction I think that we should be advocating in.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Sousa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Bill. Also, I remember that event we had at the community center. And one of the topics was trying to get specialized doctors in our community to stay within our community. What are the incentives to have them to remain in our community and service our constituents? It's hard to keep those specialized doctors here. Thank you.
It's hard to keep them here because we haven't got enough money to encourage them to stay here. And that's one of the big problems. Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Thank you through the chair, and further to that for Councillor Sousa. Yeah, if you work at the health center, you are you're doing it for the money, obviously for vocation and to support your family, but also you are doing it for the love of what you do. You are, if you go into a hospital or clinical setting, other than a CHC within Ontario, you are making a lot more, sometimes 30% more, or higher in a different setting. So, they are in our communities to help us for the love of the community as well. Because if they worked, like I said, in hospital or clinical setting, they'd be much better in their bank accounts and helping out their families more. I think attracting people is a big thing. Attract them to our area. What we have, space, the space within the CHC is limited at times, and they're kind of doing a Jenga of exactly, is it Jenga? I don't know, whatever, shuffle of space to accommodate people. And time, they're only open a certain amount of times too. I'd like to maybe look at like the youth. I sat on the youth task team, and that was a few years ago, and saw at the end of when they were really meeting, they're struggling. They know they may never own a home. They may never own a car. How hard it is to get to own a car if you don't have a supportive family or the monies or the means to get to, get to a driver's center to even go through the process of the graduate system. They all see a little hope. And there weren't very many that were very hopeful. And these kids came from all different demographics, so it wasn't a demographic thing. So yeah, just helping with the youth more, thinking more like grade 6 and up. When they're starting to really have to make decisions about their lives and what it looks like. And when there aren't, they're realizing at that point that there's not a lot that they can control it sometimes, that it's all outer, they really get down and really their mental health suffers. So maybe a more youth perspective and bringing someone in and funding for CHCs in the future from Ontario to help them look at that.
I do have the ranges of ages in West Elgin in numbers, if that's any help. Like over 65s, very, I have that because I read it out and I still got the paper. So I could bring that or bring it to you, and if it's any good, we can use those figures because they're still the right figures. Councillor Statham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I think I'm very pleased that we have the ability to go in and have a delegation with the Honorable VJ. I can't pronounce that last name. I'm so sorry.
It's our Associate Minister of Health, and his focus and portfolio is on mental health and addiction services.
Right. Thank you. Thank you
You're
very much. Thank you, Madam CEO. So I think this is really important. I come at this from, I have young children. They are young enough that they have not had any, sort of issues with addiction or mental health, but I know that those days, one day they're going to be exposed to that. And that terrifies me. It terrifies me as a father. And I want to make sure that we have in our community the support networks that are available. Should that become, and again, I want to believe that it never will. And I hope to God that it never does. But right now I can say that when we're looking at our high school, and we have overdoses at the local high school, it is an issue, and it is an issue in our community, and it's something that we have to confront. And the resources are just not here. They're not here. They're not available. And if we can have an impact with the province and are able to express the need for support, I think that would go a long ways. And even if we had, some sort of assistance with the local health center to provide those support networks, addiction is a terrible thing, and it affects everybody, and it affects everybody in different ways. And I've seen it throughout the community. And I know, especially around here with youth, they don't have anything to do. It's not the same as being in a city where they can go and play sports. I mean, they can play sports at the arena, sure, but there are not the outlets that there are in a city. And I think that means that we need to be that much more vigilant in our community to provide those support networks.
I agree.
I feel strongly about it. So thank you.
And the time for health for help is when they're young too. If we can, if you can sort of nip it in the bud before they go too far, it's obviously going to be easier to cure. So we should start at the beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Thank you, through the chair. So we tried it years ago. This is kind of going on this, I'll get there. Having a youth group in our area. And myself and Greg Simpson were leading that in the area. And we had all the kids that are already going in the right direction show up, not the ones that were having issues. And it was difficult, but a lot of them we redirected to services that we could or made, a connection with their family or their grandparents or whatever to redirect them. So maybe looking at resources of how to, like you're saying, catch those kids earlier on, that they would come to the resources that Councillor Statham was referring to in the area. I also, totally an aside, but it's bothered me since the OPP officer was here. His stats telling us there are no opioid deaths, I'm sorry, I'm shaking, make me so angry. He is incorrect. I was at one we had in the area, actually on this road. Naloxone has been given to so many people in this area recently. It angers me. And it angers me because they want to just throw it under the rug that it doesn't happen. And it does happen. Talk to the teachers in the community, talk to the educators in the community that aren't just teachers, that are administrators in this community, the parents, the clergy, the health center, anybody. It is happening, and it's not just youth as well. It's seniors and older people.
Yeah.
And it's,
We know it's.
I was so
and we
upset
know
when
it's
he
that.
came, and I was so not a happy camper. Because saying that you have to have an OPP, an ambulance, whatever, they were all there for all of those. We all drove by, we know, we witnessed it all. And saying that it's not happening, it's just not okay. Not okay to make your stats look like
That's right.
what you want them to look like.
I
That's
think
what feel.
everybody in this room realizes that it's happening, and it's happening around us.
I'm glad that we have the opportunity to have the delegation. I think it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to being there. Councillor Sousa, you're going or?
Yes.
Perfect. So there'll be at least the three of us. Richard, you're attending as well, I believe.
Pardon?
You're attending as well, Roma?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was gonna say likewise.
So council, I have one more, we have one more I have a couple listed, but one more delegation that has been confirmed is with the Ministry of Rural Affairs. I confirmed it's with the Parliamentary Assistant Steve Pinsino, who is your MPP, neighboring MPP. I know Steve is a councillor from Chatham-Kent. Last year, we also spoke with the Parliamentary Assistant, Bob, he's from Sarnia.
Yeah.
Bailey, thank you very much. Council, my recommendation that I'm want to listen here, council's concerned. Last year at AMO, Councillor Statham took a delegation and we spoke to both the Minister of Agriculture, it's not Rural Affairs anymore, Agriculture and Farm, and then the Parliamentary Assistant for Rural Affairs. And we did present concerns of our small farming industry and making sure that they understood from a rural perspective the concerns of having access to land, having access to the infrastructure that can support and expand trade, having access to or further developing education programs so that there is a connection to those learning and those who are already producing. And then we had another one.
Yeah.
At the end of our conversation, Councillor Statham did invite both the Minister from OMAFA and Parliamentary Assistant to please come to West Elgin. And so my concept is to return with that similar conversation that we already have put forward. But instead of just it being a general, you should come visit us, have an actual invitation to extend to them. So my thought was to be working with economic development. We've already had a bit of this conversation and set a date. Of which we would do a farm tour and invite our ministers, Rob Black, our neighboring ministers to join us, the Minister of Rural Affairs, Minister of OMAFA, who is Mr. Lenardi from Leamington. If we had that date ready, as opposed to just making it a generalized offer, making sure we have a set date ready, and then working with economic development to further develop and build out what that small farm agricultural tour would look like. But willing to hear from council, any concerns that they want to make sure. And remember, when we do go to delegations, they do recommend we keep it short to, the maximum of 3 concerns. If you have 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
for those who have not been into one, you have a 15-minute conversation and they knock on the door at 10 minutes. So we keep our ask and our focus very, very, very focused and very concise so that we can at least deliver what our ask is.
I'm just talking around the tables now, but West Elgin is generally agriculture.
Yeah.
And so it's our biggest thing. Okay, so we're getting less and less and less people in agriculture. Although it's still agriculture because the farms are getting larger and larger and larger. So in the finish, we're going to finish up with about half a dozen that runs West Elgin. And it's high time that if you didn't come from a farming community, but that was your life and soul and your dream, why shouldn't you have the opportunity to be able to do that? And you can't do that. For the simple reason, you can't even buy 50 acres anymore. They won't let you sever and things like that. And so I think it's only fair that people that are not in agriculture can get into agriculture, or there is a way to get into agriculture. As at the moment, it's absolutely no. Yes, Curtis Latham.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. And this was something that we discussed at AMO, and I think Robin and I at that meeting, I think that was successful. I think we did a great job in expanding upon those exact ideas, and the idea of cooperative education programs and procurement streams to support small farms, I think is critical. And it's something that I feel very passionately about, coming from a farming background myself. To your point, agriculture will not continue on a small scale in southwestern Ontario, in the bread box of Ontario, will not continue on a small scale without support. It's going to disappear. And I see that every day. We are transitioning to larger farms. We are transitioning outside of the family farm business. It's becoming corporations. And unless we put some effort into preserving those small family farms, it's going to slip away. And once it's gone, it's gone. And I agree with you 100%, I think. And this is a good opportunity to expand upon what we said at AMO. And to Robin, your point, if we could bring, again, this is the bread box of Ontario. We live in one of the best agricultural centers of the province. And to bring some representatives from the province, some of the ministers down here, and give them a tour and link that in with the Economic Development Committee and bring it all together as one package. What else could you ask for? Showcase some of the small businesses, showcase the lamb producers, the blueberry farms, showcase our breweries that are sourcing local products, showcase what we have here. I think that we could do a phenomenal job. The wineries, the grape growers, the Haascaps, all of the different crops, the carrots. We could do a great job of
No,
moving this.
even small farmers can help the grocery bill.
You do not need 10,000 acres to support your family. But what you do need is the ability to sell your product.
That's right.
And if we don't have access to these procurement streams, and we don't have access to cooperative education programs that allow people to learn about agriculture and get into the business, then we're lost. So I think, Robin, I agree 100%. I read your email. I think it's wonderful. I think that we should focus on those concepts at Roma, and I think we would have a strong delegation, and hopefully we can get the ministers down here and show them what it is to live in southwestern Ontario, specifically in West Elgin. So,
Well, I know my wish, we just, a new warden at the county, and my wish, I only put my wish forward only the other day, and that was trying to introduce people that wanted to go into farming to get into farming and find a way. Yes, Councillor Sousa.
Through you, Mr. Chair, but all very good points. One of my concerns was the Better Build Home Act. And then I'm worried about West Elgin, Dutton, like all of our farming. We're gonna lose it. They're pushing pressure to build more homes. I really want to make a point that we need a balance. I'm not saying no to building homes, I'm saying we need a good balance. We can't lose our farmlands. And if they're pressuring us for better build homes, more homes, we need to have a limit. We need to say, hey, we have to protect our farmland. Let's find the right balance. Let's get the small population growth and let's keep it rural, like keep our community small and growing. So thank
That's
you.
right. Yes, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Through the chair, maybe a talking point would be that, tell me if I'm wrong, 20 minutes outside of our community is University of Guelph, Ridgetown campus, that has agricultural links.
Ridgetown?
Ridgetown campus has agricultural links and agricultural programming that could be brought into the compass of this conversation. It's not far for people from our community to go and be educated about agriculture and what that looks like for them. So it's something, maybe just an idea for a talking point.
That's a good
Also,
point.
are we concentrating on like all farming, or are we just doing a big talk on like, I know it all connects, but like mega farms, micro farming, macro, like, are we,
The smaller
Should we have a
farmer is getting left
concentrate, or
behind
what
with
should
the
we look
larger
at?
farmer. That's what literally, as I see it. I mean, now 5,000 acres isn't big anymore, you know, and a lot of the houses that are in between in the country are also going because their big combines won't go around that little acre plot anymore. So all we're getting is like a desert of farming. That's what we're going to finish up with. And if anything happens to the farming industry really bad, and somebody goes broke when he's got 7,000 acres, going to leave some great gaps in our community.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, so last year's direction, our focus was to look at the small farmer. And it was around the concerns of rural farming and small farmer. What we did in our research to understand is actually 60% of the farming industry is small farmers. And so to make sure that the ministry understands that while we know that we respect that there is a spectrum of farming from the large industrial agricultural farms down to micro farming. But we want to make sure the rural voice is being heard, and that the voice of the small farmer who may not have the funding behind it for the lobby groups is continuously at the table. And so the focus of that then was around education, providing links between those who are learning farming and to work on actual farms, understanding that when procurement is being set up, that the small farmer is being considered. So where they're being situated, you're not having to drive hundreds of kilometers in order to produce your food. Because and Councillor Statham probably knows best on this, but in order to sell your wares, even cross-provincially, you have to be in a federally regulated facility. And so access to those facilities so that when we can access interprovincial trade, because right now with tariffs, that is a concern. So how do you broaden your base? And then I believe we also said we were looking at sort of the land and access to land. And so what are those policies that we're putting into place to make sure that there is a balance across the spectrum of large and small farming?
Yeah, and I would add to that, thank you, Robin, you summed it up perfectly. I think when you're looking at some of the larger operations that have thousands of acres, I think that they need our support as well. In the sense that, you know, we have to be advocating for Canadian agriculture and Canadian products. However, they face different challenges, and the challenges that they face are more on, you know, the cost of production and what they're receiving for their outputs, and that's dictated on a market level. And there's little that we can do about that. The small farms, you know, under sub 500 acres, you know, that are supporting a single family, those are the farms that really need support and need assistance, because those are the farms that are disappearing and they're being swallowed up by larger corporations, and that way of life is going by the wayside.
So the abattoirs, etc., everything went.
Well, what abattoirs?
I know.
There's two.
So it's no encouragement, really, is it?
Yep. So yeah, no, I think we're on the right track. I think this is it's a great delegation. I think, you know, we should get somewhere with this, hopefully, and if we can get them down here and get them to tour our community, I think they'll understand.
Yeah, it would be excellent. Yes, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Just further to that, just thinking, recently it came out that forgiveness for tuitions for healthcare, ECs and such came out. I mean, it could be a one-liner. Could we have a break for people young people, old, whatever, going into an agricultural field for their tuition fees to learn about farming and to connect to that industry. Just an idea to have a one-liner within there.
So council, I also heard from the Ministry of Infrastructure. Unfortunately, we were not successful with a meeting with them during Roma, though they did extend that we could possibly have a meeting after Roma. The focus was really around to understand the needs for, particularly around our wastewater and wastewater development. This is kind of counter though to what we were just saying, because wastewater is needed for the expansion and growth of residential homes. So we could touch on that one later. I, as of today, heard from actually the Solicitor General that if we'd like to have a meeting, I haven't confirmed this yet. We have a possibility for a meeting on Tuesday morning, but I have to see if that's fine. What I had put in, your concerns from this council were around sort of the repeat offenders and sort of limitations on being able to address repeat offenders in our community, in rural communities. So if this council would like me to also reach out and have a conversation or set up a meeting to have a conversation at Roma with the Solicitor, it would be the Deputy Parliamentary Assistant to the Solicitor General. I can certainly do that. They'll like to hear some expansion of thought on that from council. Last year, your concerns were around repeat offenders within our communities and the ability for rural communities to address those concerns. We can go with the two that we have, or I can.
Repeat offenders is something that's happening everywhere.
It is, yes.
Absolutely everywhere. And it causes a whole bunch of problems. Because a lot of them don't learn their lesson. They just come out and do it again.
So one of the concerns, Mr. Mayor, when you're looking at repeat offenders and knowing that it's a sort of a nationwide issue, as I structured all of the requests for delegations, it was always about presenting the rural voice. So the rural voice concern of having shared services of OPP across the county means we have limited access to police services, meaning that the times of which police are able to respond to issues within our community, some kind can be delayed by the volume that might be occurring across a region, not just an area. It can be delayed by the large expanse of land of which our OPP has to travel. So if they are situated in central Elgin, it's a 45-minute delay. So those are some of the concerns we can address to say municipalities then end up bearing some of the cost to repair or end up addressing some of the concerns and wanting to make sure that at a provincial level, the supports in order to provide for that. One of the concerns right now is the cost of OPP. We've already seen 11% increase. I'm going to guess that we're always going to see 11% increase because that's the ceiling. And so the cost for small municipalities to be able to support the cost of policing services with limited resource or limited services received for that increase of costs.
The general safety of our community too.
Yeah. Do you want me to proceed with confirming a meeting, a delegation with them at this time? Or are you fine with the two that we have that we've developed around?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Tellier.
Well, I'd love to speak on have a delegation on that. I think maybe concentrating on our two we already have and putting our resources into that would be best at this time.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay. I'll focus on the two that we have, and then also the third one with the Ministry of Infrastructure, but that would occur after. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Council, for your comments, and it will help me sort of restructure and structure the one certainly for health services.
Okay, thank you. A good conversation. And we're going to go to a closed session. If you would do the recommendation, please.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby proceeds into closed session at 5:46 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)K, being a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, Port Glasgow Trailer Park seasonal contracts.
Mover, please. Councillor Sousa. Seconded. Councillor Statham. All in favour? That's carried. Okay, we're moving back into open session.
Return to open session at 6:12 PM. West Elgin Committee of the Whole received one item and received the following recommendation. That West Elgin Committee of the Whole receives the 2026 Port Glasgow Trailer Park contract details from R. Greenall, CAO, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that 2026 Port Glasgow Trailer Park contract be amended and proceed to January 22nd West Elgin Council meeting for final approval.
You need to move.
Yes, please.
Moved by councillor Statham. Seconded, Deputy Mayor Tellier. All in favour? That's carried. And that takes us to adjournment.
That West Elgin Committee of the Whole hereby adjourn at 6:12 PM to meet again at 4:00 PM on Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, or at the call of the chair.
Mover, please. Councillor Sousa, seconded, Deputy Mayor Tellier. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you.